All right, good morning, second grade students. Today for language arts, we are going to be talking about the difference between singular and plural nouns. So first off, we need to know what the difference is between a singular noun and a personal noun. So a singular noun names one person, one place, one thing, or one idea. So remember, a noun is always going to be a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. So a singular noun names one. So for example, we have one cat, one store, one item. So these are all examples of a singular noun. So next we have a plural noun, and a plural noun is opposite of a singular noun. So a plural noun names two or more persons, two or more places, two or more things, or two or more ideas. So 2 cats, 4 stores, 15 items are all examples of plural nouns. All right, so we're going to talk about some generalizations for forming plural nouns. So for most singular nouns, we just add S to the end of the word. So our first one, we see teacher is singular because it's talking about one teacher. Plural would be teachers. All we do is we add an S on to the end. Next we have the word street. We're talking about one street. Now we want to talk about multiple streets. So we add an S on to the end to make it streets. Next we have one pencil, and now we have more than one pencil, so we have to put an S on to make it pencils. Next we have the word book, so we know that we're talking about one book, and then we add an S on to books to make it plural. And lastly we have elephant, so we know we're talking about only one elephant, and now we want to talk about more than one elephant, so we add an S on to make elephants. Now there are some nouns that if they have a special ending, we're going to add ES onto the end. So it says for nouns ending with S, X, Z, SH, the sh sound, or CH, the ch sound, we need to add ES onto the end. So we have the word gas as singular, and it has an S at the end, and so we know that because it ends with an S, we need to add ES onto the end. Next we have the word wax, and we see that it ends in the letter X, so we need to add ES on to make it wax is. Next we have waltz. We see that ends with Z, so we know we need to add ES to make it waltzes. Next we have dish, which ends with the SH, the sh sound, so we need to add ES to make it dish is. And lastly, we have the word church, which ends with CH, the ch sound, so we need to add ES to make it churches. All right, so next is for nouns ending with a consonant. So remember, it's a letter that is not A, E, I, O, U, or Y. So for nouns ending with a consonant and the letter Y, we need to change the Y to an I and add ES. So this one has a few more steps in it. And then it also says for nouns ending with a vowel and the letter Y, we add S on. So for example, we have the word sky. And in this one, we have the letter K. So we have a consonant, but then it also ends with a Y. So remember, we need to change the Y to an I and add ES. So we go from sky to skies. Next, we have the word army. So again, we see that we have the letter M, which is a consonant, and it also ends in Y. So we need to change that Y over to an I, and then we add the ES onto the end. So we had army, singular, and plural, we now have armies. So next we have penny. So again, we have the consonant ending the word with a Y. So we got to take off the Y, make it an I, and then add ES on. So we go from penny to pennies. All right, now we have boy. Now remember, O is a vowel, but it still ends with Y. And so remember up here it said for nouns ending with a vowel and Y, we just add an S onto the end. So for boy, all we're going to do is add on S to make boys. And our last example on this slide, we have the word alley. So again, we end with a vowel and then a Y. So all we need to do is just add an S on to make it alleys. All right, so our next one is for some nouns ending with F or FE, we need to add S. But for others, we need to change the F to a V and add S or ES. So with these ones are a little bit tougher. So on these ones, we just kind of need to memorize them. So if you don't get them right away, it's not a problem. These ones take a little bit to get used to the spellings for plurals. So again, you'll just have to memorize the spellings for these words, or you can look them up in a dictionary or online to check your spelling. So here we have the word belief, and it ends with an F. So all we need to do is add an S on. Next we have roof, again ends with F, so we're just adding the S on. Now with loaf, we don't say loafs, we need to make it loaves. So with the word loaf, we take off the F and we add V and then ES. So again, some of these are just going to take some time to memorize. It's okay if you don't get them right away. After a while, when you're spelling them out, you'll just be able to tell if it looks correct or not. There's really no special trick to it. So next we have life, and we don't say lifes, but we take the F and the E off, and we change it to V and add ES to make lives as our plural to life. And lastly, we have knife as singular, and again we end with that FE, so we're taking that off and we're adding V and then adding the ES to have knives as our plural to knife. All right, now these ones are a little more tricky. I just want to challenge you a little bit on these ones. Again, if they don't come right away, that's not a problem. So for these types of nouns that end with O, we're going to add S or ES. So again, these are ones that we're kind of just going to have to memorize as we go along. Once you get used to these, when you start spelling them out, you'll start to quickly realize if you have them spelt correctly or not. Again, there's no special trick to spelling these. These are just ones that you kind of just keep spelling them out, and then it just starts to come more naturally. So in the beginning, it might be kind of frustrating, but I know that when we keep practicing these, they're going to start to make more sense. So again, if a noun ends with an O, we're going to add S or ES. So we see that in cello and then we have plural of cellos, so we're just adding S, and the same goes for piano and radio and zoo. All we're doing is we're adding an S on to the end. But now we notice in this last one, we have potato or tomato, and this is one of those that we're actually going to add the ES on. And again, there's no special trick to this. It's just one of those things that you just, you keep practicing and it just starts to come very natural. Now there is one trick to remember, is that if it has to do with sound, such as music, all you're doing is just adding S on to the end of the singular word. So we saw that down here, that like cello and piano and radio all have to do with sound or music, and all we did was we added S on to the end. Now we also have to talk about irregular plural forms. And again, these are ones that we just have to memorize. So the more that you write them and practice them, these are going to come a lot easier. So for child, when we're talking about one child, we say child. But when we're talking about multiple, we have to change it to children. So again, there really is no rule for the ending. These are just ones that we just kind of have to memorize. Again, that's why they're called irregular plural nouns, because the endings are completely different for all of these. So if we want to talk about one foot, we say foot. But if we want to talk about both, we have to talk about both of our feet. Again, if we want to talk about one, we say we're talking about one tooth, one specific tooth. But if we want to talk about more than one, we have to say the word teeth. Same goes with mouse. If we want to talk about one, we say mouse. But if we're talking about more than one, we are going to change it to mice. And now this is one that we'll probably learn pretty quick because we'll probably be using this one a lot in writing. And even in books, you'll probably see these ones a lot. So we say one man or one woman. And then when we are talking about more than one, we say men and women. So all we're changing is the A in man or woman to an E to make men or women. Now we also have some nouns that are the same, both singular and plural. So if we're talking about one sheep, we're talking about one sheep. If we're talking about multiple, it still is sheep. So we can say there is one sheep in the pasture, or we can say there are many sheep in the pasture. Same as for Chinese. So singular is Chinese, plural is the same. The same goes for moose. Now, some people think that the plural of moose is meese, but unfortunately that is not the plural. So moose stays the same whether we're talking about one moose or we're talking about 30 moose. Grapefruit is another one that we just say grapefruit if we're talking about one, and we say grapefruit if we're talking about 10. Deer is another one that is the same singular and plural. So we have one deer or there are 10 deer in the field. And then the same goes for the word salmon. So if we're talking about one salmon or if we're talking about 10 salmon that we caught in the lake. All right, we are almost to the end. And then if we thought that this could not get any more confusing, there are also a few nouns that only have plural forms. So when we say the word scissors, we notice that we say, can I please get a pair of scissors? even though we're only asking for one scissors, we say scissors in the plural form. Just like jeans, we say, can I get a pair of jeans? But usually a pair means two, like socks. When we put on socks, we put on a pair of socks, but they're two separate socks. But with jeans, we say, I am putting on a pair of jeans, but we're only putting on one pair of jeans. Also, the word savings is only in the plural form, and the word dues. All right, and our last slide for today. We have a few nouns that end with S that look plural but are considered singular. So like the word measles. If you said, I have the measles, you're actually saying it as singular, even though normally the S would make it look plural. Or the news. I am watching the news on TV today. So again, you're saying that as singular, not as plural. The word economic, so if we're talking about the economy, again, it looks plural, but we are considering it singular. And then again, we can use the word dues as singular, even though it looks plural. So I know we had a lot today in our lesson, and it's totally okay if you don't get all of this right away, because there's a lot of different rules to remember, and even some of them you just have to memorize. There isn't just a set rule on it. And so we'll keep practicing this throughout the week and also on IXL. And that is our lesson for today.